In this video, I'll show you how to save an Illustrator file as a Photoshop document, bring it into Photoshop, and begin the final steps of coloring your comic with the Photoshop paint tools. First, after we've saved this as an Illustrator document by saying File Save or File Save As, we'll go up to the File menu again, and we're going to go down to Export. We'll click Export and name it whatever you want. It can be the same, it can be different, whatever makes sense to you. And then the Save As type, we're going to go down and we are going to find Photoshop, which is the suffix of .psd. So we're going to choose this, and I'm going to say Export. CMYK is good because we have the intent to print these, so we're going to say OK. And it's going to write my Illustrator file as a Photoshop file. Now I'm going to come into Photoshop, I'm going to go File, Open, and I'm going to look for what I just saved. So it was Illustrator Comic Panel 2, Photoshop, even though we did do some manipulation in Illustrator. I'm going to say Open, and then you'll see on the panel, or on the Layers key area rather, there are these folders, and this shows us what we've done in Illustrator. You can come back and edit it in Photoshop if you want to. But for now, I'm going to close these files by clicking on the triangle, and I'm just going to leave those be. So if I need to edit my text, I can go in here and then use Photoshop's text manipulation tools that you've learned about in previous levels and exercises, but for right now, I'm not going to do that. So this is the area that I'm focusing on today for this demo. So I'm going to zoom into it a little bit more. And I always want to practice non-destructive editing, so I'm going to copy my background layer, and I'm going to lock this one. I'm just going to treat it as a background. I'm going to put a lock on it. And so we have layer 1 copy, layer 1 or background. I want to copy this again. So I want 2 non-locked copies of my comic with the text. And I'm going to label this painting copy, and I'm going to label this not overlay, but blending mode layer. So this here is the copy, the middle copy is the one that we're going to paint on. I'm going to leave that alone for a second, and I'm going to come up to my blending mode layer. I'm going to choose a blending style up here, and I'm going to change it from normal to either darken or multiply. I would test out both and see what effect you like better. There's going to be some subtle differences. Multiply makes this a lot darker, whereas darken keeps it about the same. I'm going to go with darken because I don't necessarily know if I want my lines to be as dark as they are with multiply. So once you make your decision, know that this just let us keep on our top layer all of the dark spots, so any place that we drew with black ink is going to stay, and then any place that is white is going to let us show through or down to our painting copy. So this keeps us from having to painstakingly go around each dark area to keep from covering it. The effect is pretty cool. So I'm going to lock this layer. I don't want to do anything more with it. I just want the option of working on my painting copy, and I'm going to start painting. So maybe I have a color scheme in mind, maybe I don't. I'm going to start with my shirt here, the character shirt, and I want it blue. So I'm going to either choose a blue from my swatches panel, or I'm going to double click and I can make my own blue. Let's do something like that. I can try, depending on the thickness of my lines, to use the quick selection tool while I paint. So selecting just some, yeah, these lines are thick enough, this will work. Oops. I'm going to select just this shirt here for painting. So now that I've done that, I'm going to come over and, I'm going to choose a brush. So my brush is behind my pencil. I was using my pencil earlier. And up here is just kind of simply making the size larger, smaller, making the hardness softer or harder. The harder the brush, the more decisive of an edge you're going to have around that brush. I personally like painting with a harder brush for comics, but you can kind of experiment and see what you like to do. I like to start when I'm painting both digitally and on paper or on canvas. I like to start with the mid-tone and then add my darks and lights to that mid-tone. You'll find the way that works for you and you can go with that. If you want some more advanced brush stroke options, you can come up here to the little icon with brushes in a jar. Click that and then you can manipulate all of the brushes tip shapes as well as what kind of brush you're using. If you have any questions about brushes, let me know. So I'm going to come in and start to paint, and notice since I did a good job of selecting this, I don't have to worry about going around the edges. It's not going to be the case for every one of your drawings, but it's nice when it works out. I painted at 100% opacity. You can bump this up and down if you want a little bit more of a layered effect. Now I'm going to come in and then make some of my dark values here. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to double click and then I can add this color to my swatches over here so that I can reference it later. Double click here, and then maybe this time for my low lights or my dark areas of shadow, I want to drop the opacity a little bit, and then maybe this time you don't have to follow along, you don't have to adhere to this rule, I'm just kind of going off of what I normally do. Maybe I want to drop the opacity and then the hardness of the brush a little bit. Come in and then just kind of build up dark areas. Or areas of shadow. You can do this on separate layers if you want to, but I kind of just like painting all on one. I'm really going to drop the opacity here. And then maybe I want to start adding some highlights. So I would double click here, or maybe I would refer to my original color, double click, and then get a highlight color, and then maybe I want to come in and then lighten an area a little bit too. And then you'll notice the opacity is still down. You can go ahead and kind of experiment to see what works for you. Like I said, you can keep making copies of layers or just do it all on one. I'm going to go Control D to deselect there, and now I'm going to begin painting the skin. So I will come and use my quick selection to select skin and facial features within my drawing and begin with a mid-tone of skin. Say OK. I would start with the opacity with my brush at 100%. See how nicely that quick selection tool works. And then I would come in and add this to the swatches. Okay, and then start to add subtle differences. So maybe my subject's cheeks were a little rosy, and I wanted to add that. I drop the opacity down, might drop the hardness of my brush down, and I could come in and then create highlight, shadows, and subtle tonal differentiation. So that's kind of the gist of how you start adding color to your comic, and you're going to do this for every single panel. If you have questions, let me know, and happy painting.